Hello, this is Sai again, and we're back doing this app. We're back doing this app with this vibe coded app, which we are rebuilding, and then we're using a little bit of ChatGPT, actually a lot, to rebuild it. And just check if I'm live. How do I check? I'm live. So the goal today is to let's pull up something more interesting than this blank terminal window. The goal today is to go through three things. The first thing is that I want to recap some work that I did over the last just yesterday. I did a 4-hour session yesterday, and it was just getting my head around it without having to speak at the same time. But I want to talk through the changes that I made. And the second thing is that I want to kind of create like a style guide, a better style guide than what's in there at the moment. I want to surface the svelte components and so on that have been created as part of the process. And then the third thing is I want to pretty much do a Firebase deploy, and I want to just test out some things in production. First thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to kick off a task, and that's so that I can then talk about other things in the meantime. Oops, need to have Super Whisper coming. In this application, there are quite a lot of components. There are svelte components. There's also custom tags that are often prefixed AC hyphen. What I want to do is replace the style guide that is there, and what I want you to do is go through the whole code base, all of the components, all of the custom tags, and I want you to create replace the style guide with a page where you list out all of those components and tags sequentially, with a heading to define each one. So it should be pretty straightforward task of, replicating or including those components on the page. Yeah, I think that's what we want. All right, let's do that. So let's kick that task off. So just to be clear, I will go to our page here and show you what I mean by that. So at hobbs.ad.au, so we're just logging in as an administrator, signing with email locally. Maybe it might help if I start the application. Let's try that. So let's start our emulators, and let's start our code updates. We'll be ready to start them. And then maybe let's run that. And then let's run, when this is ready, we want to run the seeds. Got quite a lot of seeds now, seed files. Oops, I'm missing an editor. Let's pull that up as well. Which one do I want? I want this one. So you can see we've got quite a lot of seed files now. We've got some documents. We've got app config. Not much config at the moment, just some time zone stuff, some lock time. Might increase that. No, I'll leave that just a little bit longer than that. User portraits. Thank you, GPT, and some events. And I introduced some different types of events, so check-ins and things. And I'm not going to say that I'm 100% confident that this is the right model. I'm using these. Some of the events don't have an end date. They're just check-ins and things. They're sort of more like logs. Others do. And I've got shifts, and I've got proposed shifts, and I've got medical appointments, and I've got basically things that go on a calendar as part of this event thing. And I think it's fine at the moment. All right, let's go back and see if we can start our application. Did I run the seeding? I did not. Oh, and what failed there? Let's just get that going. That's a new task. I'll leave that task there. I'll get that task out of history. So we just got a quick problem to fix. We're working I'm not creating a project. I want to do a new conversation here. Okay. See if we can get this seed stuff fixed. So the work that I did, let's see if we can go back to where I started. Firebase logger error, employees portrait support. Oh, so I've worked on, does it have dates in these? Settings panel, reports panel, kiosk and normal login. There should be one here where I was working on a bug. I don't want to repeat stuff that I've already talked about. Calendar. What was this one? I get this error. Yeah, okay. So where I sort of started up yesterday, I worked on employee portrait support. So I just tried to get as good integration as possible with updating your own image, which is just on your phone, should just be a camera, and otherwise uploading an image. I separated the kiosk login from the normal login. So now there's a normal login page, and when you go into kiosk mode, it's the pin. Choose an image and the pin. I've added a settings panel so you can edit the config for the site. I kind of cleaned up some of the dumb boilerplate stuff. So the reports panel, I've just sort of wiped it clean, and sort of, I don't know exactly what reports want to go in there yet. That probably will be something that Daniel works on. Just do some usability or stuff around the calendar. You'll see the calendar's not perfect. There's some filter tools and things in there, but main thing for me is just being able to see those events and stuff on that calendar and have a few different views, and then fine tune it later. Monthly reports, okay, whatever. Add time zone and language settings, add a reusable event modal. So this is just editing items in the calendar. So it'll pop up, you can add an item and it'll pop up and you can edit it. Yeah, a lot of work, not by me. Just flesh out the seed data for events. Create a default page, which is to show the person's current shifts or the future shifts. Just worked on the little user panel layout, just with an image and just the name and the employee ID next to it, so nothing too fancy. Again, it's a bit speculative how that's going to look in the end, because it's not going to be me finalizing that. A little bit of work on the camera button, as I said before. We've got a documentation, the documents page, so you can upload documents, and I just added so that it could support images instead of just PDFs. And the work that I'm doing right now, which is this seed work. So let's get this sorted out. Jump over to okay, apparently it's changed. Now I'll run it here. That looks good. And I'll just stop the emulator and start again and just do it from scratch and see if that works, or see if it doesn't work. So when you restart the emulators, all that data gets dumped. And where are my emulators? Over here. Okay, So we've got empty data in our emulator, nothing in storage, no users in authentication, and let's run the seed import. There's our users. There is our, so in our Firestore, we have our user profiles. We have, they're grouped by, they're named by employee ID. We have events, and we have app config. Right. Now, the first thing I was going to start doing, I'll just go back to my recording here. Where is our recording history? Grab this one. How am I copying? Why can't I copy? Copy. All right. Okay, a new session. Paste. And let's kick that off. All right, let's do a push into production. Seed import. All right, just push that to GitHub, whatever. And I know that the chat's working away, but it should only focus on the style guide section. So I'm going to make an assumption that doing a deployment, it's not going to randomly pick up something by accident. Let's watch this process, because I haven't done a deployment for a while. Been mostly working locally, and there's a few questions in my mind about, what data needs to get put up there. I don't think any data needs to get put up there. I think we should be able to. Firebase storage has not been set up on Pontify AC. Cool, that's cool. Couple of streaming sessions ago, I did mention that I was going to not set up storage in the cloud, because I made the assumption that possibly the command line would do that, and it hasn't. So let's get started. So we've got storage, we've got no cost location, all locations. Now, how close can we get? So I'm going to go for East, going to stick as hypothetically as close to Brazil to Rio as possible, but whatever. No cost is better than proximity in this situation. All right, let's do continue. Start in production mode. Yes, we'll start in production mode. Your data is open by default to enable quick setup. However, you must update your security rules within 30 days to enable long-term client read-write access. Okay, so there's our storage. Let's do a deployment again and see if that fixes it. This is unknown territory for me, because obviously every time I do a new thing that I haven't done before, usually something doesn't work. This is looking like it is working. At this stage, we haven't really done anything with events or pub sub, but it's there when we do want it. Okay. Enabling auth providers. The work that you do running locally, is always going to pay off, because if you were doing changes and every time you wanted to see a change, you were needing to do this deployment process, which is quite long, you would probably start to tear your hair out after a while. Be making cups of tea between deployments. So that's not a situation that you want to be in. Creating Node.js 22 function. So this is interesting too. So it's obviously got to create functions, and those functions, I haven't really reviewed that file for a while, but there should be this index.js inside this functions folder. And we have list all users, set claims, i.e. roles, list kiosk employees. I wonder which of these actually results in a command to create a function. Like what the difference is. So there's kiosk, list function, async function, list kiosk employees. But why in the deployment is that just a single word? Okay, there it is, export const. So I imagine that anytime this syntax is declared, kiosk employees. So we have two functions. I don't know exactly what that means in terms of, I mean, I'm assuming two endpoints that do a few different things. So I'm assuming that one endpoint can do multiple things based on the fact that there's a whole bunch of actions going on in here. You can see here, export kiosk. So that's a function, and as part of this function, if the request method is get, list kiosk employees. But then there's match kiosk pin. So there's multiple actions that can be happening here. A little bit interesting that it sort of seems to be a little bit like, hey, just check if the request matches this shape and then do this, if so, or maybe it matches this shape and if so. So it's like, if nothing is actioned by the time it gets to this line, just assume it's a list of kiosk employees. Okay, sure. What's going on in this one? We have, if it's not a get or a patch, okay, sure, 405. And otherwise, if it's a get, list all users. Cool. I could see how if you kept building this up over time, it could get a little bit arbitrary, but what gets kind of loaded into each function. All right, our deployment's happened. Let's go to our app. And the most interesting point here will be probably the administration privileges as we log in, and I can't remember how that's going to work. So this is our app in the cloud, come at it with fresh thinking. Let's have a look at this. So apparently we're telling it to use an Aussie Coffee Brazil account. That's not exactly correct. A couple of other domains are supported. We're currently Gmail is turned off. It was on for testing for a little bit, but so staff sign in, continue with Google email. So I have to continue with Google here, and I have to hope it works. And I'm going to use my personal one. And I don't have one password on here, so let's get that going in the background. Let's take this off the window. Okay, putting in my password. Try another way. TFA. Okay, so I'm logged in as Hobbs. That's fine. This account is not linked to an employee profile. Kind of interesting. Oh yeah, because that means there's no profile in our store. So if I edit, and let's say if I upload a picture, let's pick a picture. Let's just, what am I doing here? Close that. Why can't I select? Have a picture here. Quick avatars. Okay. Details. So, I mean, I haven't tested this where there's no. So if we look at the local, so what it hasn't got here is this employee profile. I haven't tested the application when a profile doesn't exist. So, let's see how it goes. Full surname Hobbs. Okay, and AC. So something that I haven't done is I haven't tuned all of the permissions around these fields. So obviously shouldn't be able to set their own. Just thinking, let's see, let's do that number. IT guy. I'm not going to fill in most of this information. No telephones yet. I don't want to test the app. I just want to see if I can create a profile. Hopefully I can. No, missing or insufficient permissions. Missing or insufficient. So that must be to create a profile. And I wonder if I can do that manually. It's all part of the test. So I'm in Firestore. Events, user profiles. I wonder, I guess that this value here is, I'm actually not 100% sure. I don't know what the, how that's going to link up. So what I'm going to do is missing or insufficient permissions. I'm going to have a crack at seeing if I can get the code to do it, the codex. Okay, codex is finished the style guide, so I'll go and have a look at that in a sec. When I log in with Gmail account, in production, there is no matching user profile. Document. I need to allow a user that is a, now what even permissions do I have? I must have management permissions. Yeah, so here's my account here, administrator. Is that me though? I don't know if that's linked up. I think it's linked up to me. Yeah, because this is me here. This is me here, but where is it getting Hobbs from? If it's, yeah, no, it's getting it from there. Okay. Now this says make manager, so yeah, administrator. So I think I've got some logic in the code which is detecting that this is the email address and therefore it's giving me administrator. Let's just double check I can't save this. Missing or insufficient permissions. And I've got, oh no, error loading documents. Obviously I've got some permission issues going on, which will be a one-off to resolve. Is there really not a document that I've saved in the past? I've been working offline for quite a while, so I guess there's not. Just do one. And this refresh, this slow loading is interesting. So that's like, why? Who am I logged in as? So I'm logged in as an administrator. I'm getting this sort of hanging experience, and I don't think that's got anything to do with my app. So what? Oh, there's the document now. Okay. So something was a bit stale. User profiles. Here's my profile. And I believe that should be what's trying to save. So insufficient permissions is, I think it's this document here. Okay. Stopping and thinking. So I've logged in as a user that is not either not matching up to a user profile or it is, and I've got a permissions issue. So I'm sure that error will be in the code base. So I'm going to try to just get Jupyter to find that error for me. So missing or insufficient permissions, because I don't really have any data I want to save here. I just want to get it to link up a document and be the document that it edits. That's what I want to see. So I'm going to jump up to here. There is either not a matching user profile document or the matching one is, no, it couldn't be matching that one because then it would be loading data from it. So we have a date of birth, which is, it is loading data from it. Okay, so it's really saving. So when I log in with a Google Gmail account in production, when it tries to save the document, it's giving error. But also I did update it so that it would match the employee number. But what happens if someone doesn't have an employee number? It must match data inside the file. So if I go and have a look at this file here and I look, this is my one locally. When it edits and saves it, it must be using something here to match up the file. So it knows to edit and save this one, because just logging in as a user, Google doesn't have this information, AC 0000001. So I believe it must be matching on email address. And I don't see that either. So that's really, how is it currently working? I don't know how it's currently working. How does it match up? How does it look for and match this document? And I'm not sure how it is supposed to match a document when they are named by employee ID. Does it match a value in the profile? Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Current profile documents are keyed by employee code, and ownership is checked through a custom auth claim, not by matching an email or UID directly. I'm narrowing that against the actual account saved now. The save uses the page's target profile ID as the Firestore document name. For a normal staff user, that value should come from employee code. Oh, I see. So we have employee code in our claims. Okay. So if I was to go into here, there's the employee code. Sure. Like, that makes sense, I guess. I'm just trying to think, does that have any kind of implications? I suppose it doesn't. I suppose it's like as good as foreign key as anything. So these claims, the custom claims, though, this is something that sits close to the auth. It's not in Firestore or anything like that. So let's grab that and let's go over to our users in the cloud and jump into the claims for this user. But can we jump into the claims? Now I am fascinated. So configure MFA. No. So how do I edit claims in the cloud? Okay, when editing a user in the emulator, I can edit the claims, but when I'm in the cloud, I can't edit claims against users in authentication. How do I do it in the cloud? Lets you edit custom claims manually, but production Firebase console does not. In production, custom claims are intended to be managed from a privileged environment using the Firebase admin SDK. Do I want to do this? Maybe when loading a user, maybe what I want to do is when in the cloud and it's loading a user, and if there's no claim, I want just the app to create the claim. So let's come back here. The claim then must match da 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 da. I'd fix the app so that it does not silently fall back to UID for employee profiles. Yep, okay. How do I want the claim to be generated? Like, I guess it's going to be I guess it sort of doesn't matter what it can just be like an incremental employee code. But do we want to be able to control what that employee code is? I guess we can worry about that at a later date. I'll just pause that for a second and go and have a look at my app. So because I'm Simon, because of my email address, I've got administrator. So I should be able to check all the settings. So, oh no, that says that's locked. Oh no, it's just loading. So let's set that to 15 seconds, set it to Rio, set it to English. We haven't put a second language in. We haven't put Portuguese in at all yet. Save changes. Does that work? That seems to work fine. No, that is not working. So what's going on there? Firestore. That did work. Oh no, yeah. So there was just a delay loading those values into the fields. Okay, so we have admin access to Firebase to quantify. Let's test a couple of things that we can test. So I want to test. Let's test adding a file. So should be able to add an image here. Definitely slower than the experience locally, of course. We're trading that off for cost, obviously. So I can list my employees. I'm not worried about scheduling at the moment. I've got settings. That'll do for now. So let's jump over to this task. And so how will it allocate a new ID? So we just have like a sequential ID. So if I have a number as a setting, and so add a setting for the last employee ID, for the next employee ID, so that there is. Should it just be a number? This can just be a number. So we just sort of want a way just to not have too much rigmarole around creating a new employee ID. Sort of winging it a little bit here. So add a setting for the next employee ID. This can just be a number. Sure. So if the number is 1, the next employee ID will be AC0001. Sure. Not trying to be fancy. Then when a user is loaded, if there is no what was the employee code? If there's no employee code claim, automatically set one based on the next ID, and automatically set one based on the next ID, and then increment the next ID. The initial number, if not set at all, is 7. That's just so I can claim 7, just for completely silly reasons. But let's try that. So the goal here is that we can we've created this employee code, which is connected by a claim, which is set in a claim that is then used to load a user profile. Is this the right way to do it? Is this the best way to do it? I don't know. But it will work. And I'm just trying to make it so that when I do a deployment, that production works it all out. And while I'm waiting for this, I'm just going to go to have a look at the style guide. Oh, okay. So I really like this because what it does is it lets you see the horror that you've created in the back end. So what are these? So here's our custom svelte components. And do these make sense? Oh, this is just fantastic. I just love this sort of thing. And then we have the custom tags. And in a previous session, what I did is I said that I want to use, like, it's quite perfectly valid to have HTML tags that are custom like this. And it's a good way to define anything that doesn't have an element, doesn't have a tag. Now, a good example of that is, without going into, well, actually, I will go into code just to make sure we're on the same page here. Let's open up a text editor. And let's grab that here. So if you have something like this, which is a valid HTML5, type equals button, right? So that's what you want to use where possible. If you have something that's extremely complex that needs its own template in Svelte, then it's going to be something like, address card, like that. And I'm not even going to speculate on, like, talk about how Svelte manages that, because it's out of scope for this conversation. But if you have something that doesn't exist, doesn't have its own Svelte template, then you can create a custom, as long as you have your own prefix, so it can be X. So you can do this, but you wouldn't do that because button has a perfectly valid existing HTML5 one, and you wouldn't do, H2 for that reason as well. But you can essentially do anything that you want, and we're using the prefix AC for the project, right? So when I come over here and I look at the custom elements, custom tags that have been created, it gives me a chance to kind of sense whether that is, like, cooked or not. For example, AC eyebrow, the use of something like AC eyebrow. An eyebrow is, some text that sits above a heading. So you might have heading, hello world. And in design systems, you'll often have, like, an eyebrow above it. So you might have span class equals eyebrow. And the whole idea of that is this sort of thing. So you've got your title of your page, and then you've got your eyebrow text. So the eyebrow is completely arbitrary name for it, but it's something that you'll often see in style guides. It'll be referred to as an eyebrow for hopefully obvious reasons. So if you're doing something like this and you're just using a generic tag like span, you sort of have to add this class to it to add extra context and to give you something to target. But what we're doing is we're doing this. Hello, intro, something like that. AC eyebrow, whoops, and then take that out. So we're doing this, which is just the result. And as I said in a previous discussion, there's an article that you should read, which is, if I can remember it, Jordan Brennan. So this article here. Okay, so effectively, I'm using the strategies outlined in this article, and so there's a bunch of different examples where it compares, what you'd normally see in HTML, CSS with what happens when you use tag. What's it called? Tag, attribute, class. So you're starting with a tag, you're adding an attribute if you want more focus, and then a class if you actually need to target a specific thing for styling. So an attribute would be something like variant secondary or something like that, right? So where you've got two different styles of an eyebrow, you might have a primary and a variant and a secondary variant. And again, that attribute is also made up. It doesn't exist in any spec, but it's perfectly valid HTML to do this. So this is the strategy that we're using. But when I come and have a look at our style guide, should we have this many? So this obviously is related to our calendar. Again, related to our calendar. All of the different components in the kiosk have been given custom things, and for some of these, I would 100% assume that a lot of these will not be doing anything except existing for no reason. And when I say existing for no reason, they will be things like this, where I want to be able to come back to Jeopardy and go, hey, when you did this, please do this. Please change it to a button, because a button exists, just use a button. And that's why I wanted to create this style guide. One of the reasons I wanted to create this style guide, so I could have a sense of the damage of how bad it was potentially and what work I wanted to do. Anyway, so below it, it's then given us a whole bunch of so we've got address card, and it's all sorted alphabetically. This is really great. App link, app shell. I'm not going to talk. This is an example of something that's good. Branded. Where is it? It's going to be here. Brand lockup. So there's the brand lockup. So I click there. There's the brand lockup. This is what I'd expect to see around the site. And if I want to change it, I can change it. I can change the template for how the brand lockup looks. This is the modal form for creating an event. So you get the idea. Kiosk pin card. Like I like this sort of thing. This sort of thing floats my boat. Even though there's quite a lot at the moment, that's something I want to come back to. Oh, the other thing I want to do with this is I want to be able to give Daniel like some variable settings. So I'm going to at a later session, if I come over here and I'll open up it's one of the CSS files. Let's have a look. Source assets. Just app.css. So I want to give him access to these to color variables. So what's going to happen is that the cafe owner Dan is going to want to restyle this, and I'm going to try to set up an agents file that leads him to doing. So if he says, I want it all to be blue and pink and red, his LLM is going to be told in the agent's text, in the agent's MD, if you're going to change the style, go have a look at this file, go have a look at these variables, try to change these variables, and if not, then do this, and if not, then do this. And that's something that I want to set up. So for now, I'm happy with this. I'll leave it with this for the moment. Come back to that later. Okay, let's do a commit and a deployment to see if we are able to edit our account in the cloud. What have we got? Git, yay. So style guide and edit in the cloud. We don't need to push, just do a deployment. Firebase deploy. Just want to watch this and see how long it takes. I'm curious, when you're pushing functions, does it redeploy the functions? Because deploying a function is quite a slow process if you've deployed functions anywhere. And so if I haven't changed the functions, which I didn't, in this since the last deployment. Does it somehow know that, or or do you have to sit there and wait for it to do that process? Where was the last one here? Where was the functions? I can't see them. Yeah, so creating/recreating. Oh, it's added a new function since last time, which is the account. Okay, have a look at that. Okay. If it's an options, return 204. What's 204? Unchanged. 204 HTML code. HTTP code. No the request has succeeded, but the client doesn't do anything. Sure. Only post requests are supported. Account could not be prepared. Interesting. Like, I still haven't got my head around for this one thing where we just wanted to be able to assign an employee code claim. It's created a new function. With all of the stuff that we have so far with editing and updating and stuff like that, why has there not been an account function being created? Like, what's the difference? Obviously, there's a lot of permissions. There's a permissions plane for functions. But what I still haven't worked out is why don't more things end up in that permissions plane? And when is the AI deciding that something should end up in that permissions plane? Okay, deployment is complete. Remember what browser I'm in? I even have a logout. Does it log me out? Account is not linked to an employee profile. Edit. Given name Simon. Account saved. And then if I come over here in to the cloud, refresh this, probably didn't need to, but I'm going to give this a big old fat refresh. The user profiles, account 107, 1007. I mean, that should be me, right? This document has no data. That's the information that I added to it. So how come it's doing this document and not named AC1007? Let's delete that. And let's delete that. Why? Why error deleting document? Why? Delete. Why error deleting document? I'm going to say something about ownership. I'm going to log into the application as this user. No, I'm going to go and have a look at the settings. Do we have this new next employee number? Okay, so there's nothing. Oh. We wait for it. So there's 7. Let's go with 6. Save changes. And do we We need a way of logging out at some point. If I go to kiosk mode, that logs out. So no employees are available for kiosk. Full login. And continue with Google. Let's find it. Just off screen. Okay, I want this one. Where's my window? There you go. Yeah. Okay, so this user is not seen as a user, an editor, so it's not flagging as an editor. It can access the style guide. It can access its own documents. Now let's have a look and see. We can't see claims apparently online without doing command line stuff, so whatever. What it would be better is if we just edit the employee ID through the UI so it can edit the claim. But I really like the idea of having these documents have IDs that are human readable, especially for a small system like this where you kind of want everything to be opaque and easy to kind of track down and understand. So that hasn't yet. Let's try saving. So it's obviously got an ID from somewhere, so that must be in the claim, right? Good assumption. Let's try and Aussie admin. Let us also change the music. Account saved, but where? Oh, here we go. Okay, that's good. So there's the code. There's the name of the file. Here's the code. Let's see if we can make this user an admin and then switch back. So here, I'm here. Kiosk mode is again a way of logging out. No employees are available for kiosk. Maybe that's based on who has pins. So let's not worry about that for the moment. Continue with Google. Okay, employees. Make a manager. Edit. Let's give it a pin. So 9999. This account saved at the bottom is really annoying me. Okay, on now this is just where I think sweet spot is for AI stuff, when you've got an existing application that works on the account, editing, form, move, and any confirmation message to the top of the form. So I've got a pin on this account and I'm logged in as this admin and I've got a pin on this. Yeah, so if I hit kiosk mode now. No employees are available for kiosk login. Now I know my local setup I did, so something in that query, something's not matching. And maybe it's just something. Maybe I can just look at the code. Let's have a look at the code. List kiosk employees. So await via store, user profiles, status is active. Okay. All right. That's simple as that, I guess. Do we have... All right, here we go. So we're back here. Okay, full login. So I'm going to log in as the manager again. It's good. I can see everything. If I see employees and if I edit, say if I edit this employee, employee code AC 1000. Will that create a document? We'll find out. Let's add the kiosk. Status should be dropped down. Make this status field on the employee edit form a checkbox or true, false. If I go and have a look at a status locally, what does that look like? So I can just fake it. Authentication, storage, not storage, Firestore, user profiles. Where's status? Active. No, okay, so I want it to be, let's make it a drop down box. No, make it a drop down. All right. Come back here and we'll make this status active. Should make it appear in the kiosk. Given names. This is a fake account. Andy Murray. Bird name Andy. Yeah, Andrew. Primary position. Do I want to set anything else? Start date. Nah. Save account. Account saved. Kiosk mode. Okay, so there is my kiosk user. So to test this, did I set a pin? I don't even remember if I set the pin. Of course, yes I did. I must have. Can we tell this to... Never. Okay, we're making some progress. I want to use... Okay, we've got... Yeah, right. Okay, so these values must be set inside the profile. So let's try and log in as me again. And if I edit my own document, there's my code. So it seems to be that it's linking up. Simon is the dev. I call this process of like, you know, when you're installing some furniture or cabinetry and you sort of push everything, shuffling everything into place. It's not quite fitting, but you're shaving a bit and you're twisting and you're pushing and you're forcing. And let's just this is not a scripted deployment, issue 3 free scripted deployment. This is get a production site up and running and find out how to do it at the same time. Let's try to set my picture again. Okay, that's good. Let's set my status to active so we can see myself on the kiosk. Developer, set a pin. And account saved, kiosk mode. Okay, so there we are. So I'm an employee. I've arrived at work. I check in with my PIN. Now that should create a check-in event. So if I jump into events in Firestore, there's yep, that's completely wrong what that's created. Date start, date end. What is even that done? Wait, the date's today's the that's pretty wrong. So that should have created an event type. That's got a capital shift for the event type. It should just be a check-in. So that's something to do. So I'll just fire that off as a task. When I check in, the event type should be a check-in. And for checkout, it should be checkout. And the start date, I don't even know where it's got that information from. Like, that's wild to me. I don't like how it hallucinated that is some sort of weird setup. And the start date should be today. Now that could be a time zone issue. So I'm UTC +10. So it is. I think it's adjusted based on this idea that it thinks it's in Rio, and so therefore my local date time setting is making it be tomorrow. Something like that. Okay, the start date, and there should be no end. So I'm going to say, and there should be no end date. So let's start with that. It's fine. So our goal for our first release is we don't really mind if we've got a few bugs, but this check-in process, we kind of want this check-in process to be working, because this is something that Dan can immediately start using to so his situation that he has is he wants to make it easy to track. So if he does a shift from 9 to 5 and someone has to come in at 5 a.m. early on their shift, he wants to be able to just easily report on that, on the amount of hours the person was on site. So that is kind of like the first thing that he can start using. So even there's going to be lots of little bugs and weird things as we go along, but that's the thing that we want. That's kind of like the first checkpoint. And I guess you could say in good software development, you'd be like, you deploy something that's working and is only what you need. And then you like lean startup and then increment. But kind of because this is free work, there's a few more things going on here. And like the first one is that like I want to, in one kind of project, in one kind of time frame, gather as much information as possible about Firebase. I want to have an app that's kind of relatively complex that's running in Firebase, so I can start looking at what sort of charging happens and what sort of costs are involved with running it. And also, the actual prototype application has got a million things in it, and it's very difficult for me to say. I've already made mistakes about what things are important and not. So, for example, I thought that doing a medical appointment was just a nice to have, but in Brazil, it's very much tied in with their labor laws. Like, so it's very, very common to have to do a medical test for a job. And then the medical test is essentially establishing that you're fit to work in the job. So it's really normal. So it seems like, so it's a higher priority than I'd expect. So to a degree, the things that I deploy into this app, I want to kind of like have them as, this is what I think the app needs. This is what I think a working app is. And for then Dan, the business owner, to turn around and go, okay, but you missed this, and also these are great, but also I don't need this. So, yeah, so for me, like the rules change a little bit in terms of what is good. You know, you're working with a moving state, because the other thing is that I'm going to be offloading tasks to Dan because I'm not being paid for this, right? So I want to give him value, but then if there's an itch that he wants to scratch, I have to work out how to position things in such a way that he can scratch the itch. So that's about setting up the agents files and all this sort of stuff, but it's also about us setting up an architecture that is going to roughly work. I don't want, so let's say the calendar system is a really good example of that. Like, it's a pretty complex piece of work, and it might seem naively, you might look at it and go, hey, what's the calendar? I'm going to build a calendar, I'm going to vibe code a calendar. But I have seen things go pretty crazy when those assumptions aren't really tested. So I sort of want to know how the calendar works so I can see if and when things diverge dramatically from that. So, yeah, long story short, we want to do this check-in. We want to be able to check in the staff members. All right, that's finished. I'm actually just playing around with deployments here. So let's do a Firebase deploy. Actually, I'll log in locally here as well. So this calendar is actually a bit rough. There should be, some of these things should work, don't necessarily work. So this is check in, check out. This is all based on seed data. So I'm on my local machine here at the moment. So what we want to do is we want to have shifts. We want to be able to add. I thought I had it so that you could add a shift easily. But we can edit. So there's a shift, turn that into an available shift. I want to be able to set that to no one. Let's leave that as shift for the moment. So we should be able to save that. But yeah, some of this stuff like the check-in, check-out, like if I'm looking at all, I probably don't want to see check-ins. Again, that's weird. Like, yes, that's locked, but that must be coming from the seed data. So a check-in, we want to hide that field altogether. So there's lots of little things on the calendar and the scheduling, lots of little bugs going on there. But generally, it's pretty good. I don't know what this is doing. Is this meant to be a key, a color key? Because it's not working if it is. Our reports is empty. There's our employee list, our style guide, our kiosk mode, our settings. Oh yeah. I wish that production was as fast as that. It's not. And yeah, so look, that's most of it. I should also be able to edit other users. So if I go to this user, I should be able to edit this user. Let's see if that's deployed. Okay, so full login. What was I actually fixing? I was fixing the user saving form, wasn't I? And what's this? Yeah, for check-in, check-out, the event type. So I actually want to test the check-in. So, okay, whoops. Oh, that's cancelled very quickly. Okay, finish full login. See how the event's stored. Is that my check-in? Yeah, interesting. So what's this date? It's a couple of weeks ago. Is it? Yep, so that's weird. These buttons are weird. Can't find the event on the calendar. Unless I did something about how that should show. Where is... Surely there was an add button. I'm sure I added an add button. Let's try creating that again. Now this accounts assignments, I don't remember doing any of this work. So that is the piece of work that I just did. It's like linking up the account with the employee code. I need to rethink this completely. Like, I'll probably start this over because it's just there is a one-to-one relationship between a user and the user profile. I don't want to have multiple ways of logging in, and so I don't need to have this abstraction between the account and the profile. That's just not going to happen. So I'm going to have to revisit that sooner than later. My events doesn't seem to be saving events. I'm not sure. I need to have a look at that. I do want to I want to have the ability to add an event so that I can more or less test a lot of this stuff. It says there's a shift here, so I have a feeling this shift is just sitting in the wrong time zone. So it's sort of not getting out of this range because clearly there's a shift from somewhere. Also, let's look at my time zone. Now that could be a problem. Maybe I should set my own time zone. Contact identity, finance preferences, time zone is, yep, I haven't even given it the option of doing Melbourne, which I probably should. So, yeah, so no wonder that's all screwy. Should all just be values that get saved. I'm anticipating that Dan will restructure a lot of this stuff. He wants to do an onboarding process that'll populate a lot of these variables. Add telephone. That's having an error in the background as well. So it's quite a lot of little glitches that I need to look at. Is that no? Yeah. But look, generally speaking, I'm happy with this. it's just a case of going through all these glitches one by one, and I'll probably do that in an offline session. The speed is interesting. It's not fast. It's not as I mean, I don't need it to be fast, but it's definitely not fast for some of these operations. I guess that's going to be the trade-off, the abstraction. There's going to be a trade-off there. But yeah, give me a lamp stack and I could do it a lot, and it'd be a lot faster than this. I'm going to leave the session for today. Yeah, it was pretty good. Like a little bit of a dive into trying to go live and seeing how that operated. I definitely had a few different issues around permissions, around some of the content model getting a bit out of whack, some things that had been established early on, such as using these internal IDs for documents, and then later on when we did, we then have struggled to correct these, whereas we would probably have wanted a clean slate. But also this will give me an opportunity to learn, what the best way is to edit these things and, in a live production database. So my name is Cy, or Simon, or Simesy, and my company is FreeSource. Thanks for joining me today, if indeed you did, and I'll see you in the next video.